This podcast contains explicit content. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to the Creepy Cannabis Podcast, where we chat all things creepy, cannabis, true crime, paranormal, and weird. I'm Madeline.
And I'm Rachel. And today we're going to talk about my favorite thing in the whole world that I was so insistent I was going to sneak in here one day. And it's movies, because COVID, what else are you going to do anyway?
Well, you also have 1,000 DVDs.
I do have many, and I definitely refuse to get rid of them. We're very proud of being old and having old school DVDs. I want my children to be like, what are those books? And me to be like,
what are those books?
The future.
That's like kids that don't know that the save icon on Word is a floppy disk.
Oh, and they're like, what is this?
Floppy disks are?
The worst I ever heard was
I'm old.
Some little kid that was like, why do you say hang up when you
Stop, I'm gonna cry.
Get off of your phone? It's like from when you hang that bitch up on the wall.
I was talking to people at work today and I realized I was the oldest one there, and I was like, oh. And I'm the adult in the room now.
You're
you look
several
around
years.
And you're like, where's the adult?
Yes, I always, when I have to page, like, anyone at the hospital, I'm always like, I need another adult. More adult than me.
More serious adult.
Well, we won't just be talking about movies. We're going to talk about movies that are cursed. But before we do that, there's something else we need to talk about. A presence in the room, if you will.
A sweet caramel aroma, as it's described. Does it smell like that?
Serious question. Mm-hmm. Is it caramel or caramel?
Caramel.
Yes, it's caramel. When people say caramel, I'm like, hey, caramel.
Caramel.
You can't say that. Like, you can be like, hey, caramel. Clear your throat.
Okay, so this strain this week is called Cream Caramel, named after its sweet caramel aroma. Does it smell like it? You didn't answer me last time. Does it smell like it's sweet?
I don't smell sweet.
Aroma?
No, I don't. But I'm kind of far away from you.
It smells like weed.
Yeah. I smell a hint of dank.
Right. It's a 90% indica cross between blue-black, maple leaf indica, and white rhino. 3 other strains, apparently.
I actually do smell sweetness now. I don't smell caramel, but I smell sweetness. Sweet. Yeah.
And it says it's covered in a sugary coat of THC-rich resin, which is pretty sweet. It delivers heavy, relaxing indica effects, so it's going to be ideal before bed, because that is gonna put you to sleep probably, and 90% indica, that's pretty strong. And it's meant to soothe the body and mind. And it was originally bred by sweet seeds in Spain. Alright, that sentence doesn't make sense now that I'm rereading back my notes. But anyway, it was originally bred in Spain. And then they made some other strain called Royal Caramel that's very similar. So it usually clocks in at about 15 to 20% THC, which isn't that high. The last one that I did last week was 27%.
I don't want to say I was contact high, but I'm not going to say I wasn't. Would you think this would be more suitable for like a beginner, somebody who's like trying to quell some anxiety?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Honestly, it just depends on the person, because some people think that flower is a lot stronger. I mean, it is a lot stronger than like vape cartridges or edibles. Edibles just hit your system differently and they last longer. It's like a long, consistent high instead of just like instant high
And then night.
well, or just like ebbs and flows.
I wouldn't know. I don't
I mean,
live in the
15
lap
to
of
20%
luxury.
is pretty good. And there is actually such thing as CBD flower, which is, it looks like a nug of regular, what you would think of as weed. Basically, just doesn't have THC in it. So it's like a plant that's been bred. It's probably like industrialized hemp, because industrialized hemp has had THC bred out of it, and that's why CBD is legal federally, because there's no THC in those plants, the plants that they use to harvest it.
It's just so much more scientific than I realized. And I always think it's funny how certain things you hear people talk about and you just like don't even know what's going on. But like when you're interested in it and you have a passion for it, like it's just the information flows so easy in your brain.
It's so interesting. And then this strain also does have a pretty significant amount of CBD. 1% of any other like terpene is pretty good. CBD, it's like 1 to 1.5% in this strain. And CBD is just a non-psychoactive version of THC, so it's super good for relaxation, anxiety relief. It's just not going to get you high, quote unquote. So sometimes people like have unrealistic expectations about it, and I'm like, you're not going to feel anything. It's just going to quell your feelings of stress. You're almost not going to notice it until you're like, oh, this is just kind of like peaceful.
It's just like the lack of stress, and so it's just a kind of a smooth. It sounds like that would be something good for me.
Yeah, like some people have to do really, really high CBD to THC ratios because they're just super sensitive to THC. And then some people have to take like 330 milligram edibles to fucking feel anything, which is a lot.
I am deeply affected by any substance the moment it hits my lips.
So like you would be good with like the 2.5 milligram mints that they make, which is the lowest possible dosing.
And I'd be running around half naked eating bagel bites for 3 hours.
Yeah, I know somebody who had 2.5 milligrams and it was really strong. It reacts differently in everyone's system, which is the interesting thing about cannabis, just like any medicine.
Yeah.
Like some people can take 2 milligrams of Xanax and some people take 0.25 and fall asleep in 4 minutes.
I had to take Xanax one time. It was given to me, I'm pretty sure, it's years ago, but I'm pretty sure it was for severe anxiety. And it was whatever the lowest milligram was, and I got 0.25. A quarter of it. And I literally went to bed for 48 hours.
Yes.
And I was like, I've never touched it since. I was like...
But some people can take like...
Bro, if I need to go to sleep, I'm like, let me just hit some NyQuil real quick.
Yeah.
I can't live that life.
So, let me continue on with this description. Let's see, where was I? Oh, it says, if you plan to stay indoors, there's no better strain to medicate with. Not only will you notice an increase in concentration and focus, but you feel incredibly calm. It is the perfect evening strain, but it's more of a sit and stay strain, or a indica. That's how I tell people to remember indica versus sativa.
Indica. In the
Netflix. Sativa, daytime.
Yeah. They kind of sound like what they should be.
Yeah, once indica. You know them.
I feel like I'm going to make all kind of like dad joke puns now, like covers in my bed.
And it says, one of the best things about the cream caramel strain is that its effects are long lasting. So it can be anywhere between 3 to 4 hours.
What'd I say? Run around naked with bagel bites for hours.
Essentially 2 to 3 hits are all you need for the rest of the evening. Well, I'm about to smoke a whole joint, so we'll see where that goes. Okay, considering the strain's characteristics, it is better suited for treating
We're gonna get there.
It's best suited for treating medical conditions such as anorexia, pains, aches, insomnia, anxiety. I mean, almost all strains are good for everything if you really ask me, but that's all I got.
You just went dead off the cliff. That's it.
That's
well,
all, folks.
Okay.
So we'll see. It does smell kind of sweet, which is weird.
Yeah, I definitely do. Yeah, I can't like
Wait until
place it.
We haven't had blue cheese at work yet, but that shit smells like blue cheese.
Ew.
It's good though.
I'll forbode it.
I like
it's
it.
forbidden. You can't bring that. Okay.
It's yummy. Garlic cookies smells like garlic too.
That's just so weird to me. I'm not about that life. I mean, unless you bring me one that is like chocolate covered strawberry. Just kidding. I'm on keto.
There was blueberry cookies that we had.
I don't like blueberries, but I like blueberry flavoring, so I might like it. Okay, so talking about these movie curses, the most, I guess not most notable, a lot of them are really well known if you're interested in movies or you follow that in any way. But this is a movie that I watched a lot as a kid and just happens to have like a really prominent story behind it, which is Poltergeist, which came out June 4th, 1982. Have you ever seen that?
No, I haven't.
You
that
really
was me shaking my head and not realizing that I have to say things out loud.
You kind of hurt my soul sometimes with the lack of care.
I don't like old movies because I am a weird age, like late millennial, or is it late millennial?
You're a younger. Well, no, because
I'm on the cusp of Gen Z.
Yeah, because I'm 32.
Z is 96, I think.
So I'm like a millennial who's like phasing out into geriatric, whatever that is. Like I'm headed that way. Like
Boomer.
At 9 p.m., which is right exactly now, I'm like, oh, I'm 30 minutes past my bedtime.
Oh yeah, I should have been in bed a long time ago.
Well, to be fair, like this isn't any movie, you know, when it's years and years later and you look back, you're like, oh my God, how did I ever think those effects were cool? But I watched this a lot growing up because it was one of my mom's favorites. Yeah. And it's a trilogy and it is really good. That'd be terrifying. Yeah, maybe one day, like, I'll just get you really high and make you watch it.
I don't like the idea of a poltergeist, so I'm sure it would be terrifying.
Yeah, it is. So I'm just going to tell you like a brief description. So basically, it was about a family called the Freelings, which were a typical suburban family. Husband Steve sells real estate in their ever-expanding subdivision, and Diane is a stay-at-home mom caring for their 3 kids, Dana, Robbie, and little Carol Ann. Strange things. I know. It was Carol Ann.
Why does one kid always have 2 names?
Cindy Lou. Strange things begin to happen in the house, however. Cupboard doors open on their own. Furniture rearranges itself and chairs go sliding across the kitchen floor. It's very whimsical at first, but soon becomes deadly serious when Carol Ann vanishes into another world where, oddly, she can only be communicated with through a white noise on their television. A team of paranormal investigators. That's really good.
Coraline. You've seen Coraline.
Oh, I haven't seen it yet.
You've never seen Coraline?
No, I know, and I love Tim Burton. Don't come for me.
Okay, whatever.
A team of paranormal investigators move into the house, but the forces that kidnapped are evil and powerful, requiring the services of Tangina, a woman who has dealt with the situation before. So I know that was like a really quick bleh, but basically their house is haunted by something, and Carol Ann goes missing, and the whole time they're trying to get her to like go into the light and
it's dark as shit.
Like come out. And if I'm not mistaken, what actually is the cause is that this site was built on top of a Native American burial ground. And they were pissed.
Didn't they do that in one of the scary movies?
Yeah, I think they did. Number 3, which, because by the way,
I would have seen that.
Is a dead-ass ripoff. Come for me. So, we're going to start with the oldest daughter, Dana, who was played by actress Dominique Dune. Dominique was born into a life of privilege in Santa Monica on November 23rd, 1959, to Ellen Beatrice Griffin Dune and Dominic Dune, a producer, actor, and writer. Actor Griffin Dune is her brother, and after her parents' divorce, she moved first to New York and then a posh home in Beverly Hills. Upon graduation from high school, she went to the University of Colorado to study acting, leaving after just 1 year to pursue her career. I feel like that's always the case with celebrities. They're like, I went to school for 14 minutes, but then I decided to pursue my passion.
I was homeschooled in a trailer on the set.
We're
Is really what it is.
just some jealous ass bitches.
I mean, yeah.
So 3 weeks after arriving in Hollywood, she got her first gig, and other roles soon followed. But very notably, and probably most notably, was her role as Dana Freeling, the eldest daughter in Poltergeist. She really soon became well known in the Hollywood social scene. She was well liked by people who knew her. She was young. She was in her 20s. She kind of seemed to be at the top of the world. And that at a party, she met John Thomas Sweeney. He was a chef at a popular LA night spot. I think it's called Ma Maison. I'm not really sure. It could be one of those ones with like a French...
Ma Maison.
Maison. Ma Maison.
Is
So
it
she
2
met
words?
him. You know, that's always how... What?
Is it 2 words?
Yeah.
Ma Maison.
Yeah. That's how it always starts, you know. You met. Some douche at a party. Never good news.
It's never good news.
They began a relationship. It immediately turned stormy. Shocker. Sweeney was known to be uncontrollable and super abusive to Dominique. The abuse was actually a shocker. And, you know, this is back in 82. Like, you can barely get anyone to care about a domestic abuse now and take it serious.
Oh, yeah,
so,
no.
in 1982...
the Dark Ages.
Yes. She was beaten so badly that she was playing a character on a movie called Hill Street Blue. She was playing an abused teen, and she went to work and did not have to get any makeup. She just proceeded on as an abuse victim with her natural abuse.
And they were like, this is fine.
Oh, I definitely circle back to that later because, yes, the answer is nobody did a damn thing to help this girl.
Wow.
From all of my research. Yeah, I'll give you a minute to be shocked.
Incredibly rude.
To her credit, she ended the relationship herself on October 30th, 1982.
Almost Halloween. Is that Halloween?
October 31st is
Oh,
Halloween.
fuck yeah.
Close enough. It was just 4 months after the release of Poltergeist. That same exact evening, Sweeney, who was distraught over losing his punching bag, raced to her home where she was rehearsing with a fellow actor named David Packer. David Packer. I don't know the specifics of this because there was obviously someone there who could have helped her, but he dragged her outside of her home and strangled her, leaving her alive but brain dead.
Oh.
And just 5 short days later, she was removed from life support and pronounced dead on November 4th, 1982, just days away from her 23rd birthday.
That is fucked.
She was hospitalized at Cedars-Sinai Hospital Medical Center, who I don't understand because I read an article that said they're adamant that they did not shut off her life support, but another article said her life support was shut off. Because she was brain dead. Like, she wasn't coming out of it, but...
Either way.
It was just kind of weird to me.
That's
so...
fucked.
Yeah,
Did he go to jail?
So... I mean, does it count if he only went for 2.5 years? So, I couldn't find, like, any information on the trial or anything like that. But I do know that he did go to prison... And he served only 2.5 years. When he was released, he nearly immediately found a job at a restaurant, but Dune's mother was having none of it. So she had started a grievance support group called Justice for Victims of Homicide with a couple of other people. And every single night that he went to work, her group would hand out flyers to the patrons coming to the restaurant, and they read, "The hands that will prepare your meal tonight also murdered Dominique Dune."
Ooh.
Obviously, he was fired.
Yeesh.
Immediately.
Yeesh.
Because it's fine. Justice is a dish best served cold. Or is it revenge? I think it's revenge.
Revenge, isn't it?
Either way, bitch is getting revenge. She was like, you ain't cooking anywhere. So he was fired and eventually moved to Northwest USA and changed his name to John Mara, as the creeps always do. They just move, get a new name,
I mean, yeah.
and just have a great life.
Everything's fine.
While this beautiful, perfect soul who had everything in front of her was brutally murdered. And I really wanted more information on this David. I'm going to call him David Pecker because I want to know why he didn't save her life.
Sounds like a pecker.
Like, and you don't know until you're in it. Like, maybe your brain doesn't even know what's going on. And
well, there's also the bystander effect, which is where everyone assumes somebody else is going to do something, so they don't do anything.
And he didn't kill her, so maybe this guy did intervene, and well, he did kill her, but like she was brain dead, but she was still breathing. So maybe he did interfere in some way, and that's what ultimately stopped it. I honestly could not figure it out. I got like 98% of my information from IMDb, which is, it's like a movie site or app you can go to. It's my favorite thing. And you can search any movie you want and see everybody who starred in it, read their profiles, and just read stuff about the movie. So I got a lot of good things from there, and then had to do some deep dives on like the specifics of like the tragedies. So that's pretty much all for poor Dominique. I mean, a classic case of abuse, and it's really sad because she did everything she could, you know. She left that relationship, and it makes me sad.
It is sad.
So the next death related to this movie is the really tragic death of Heather O'Rourke, who played the youngest daughter, Carol Ann. So she was born on December 27th, 1975 in San Diego, California. Her mom was Kathleen, who was a seamstress, and her dad, Michael O'Rourke, was a construction worker. I think her death made me sadder because when you realize the cause of it and it being completely preventable and such like she was 12 years old, by the way.
Oh, Lord.
So, and just a side note, she starred in all three films, so she did end up filming all three. So she was actually discovered sitting alone. Okay, let me back up. I shouldn't say discovered. From what I read, she actually had done like commercial work and other things, but hadn't had like a breakout role or anything. So she was discovered when she was sitting alone at the MGM commissary waiting for her mother when a strange man approached her and asked her name, and she said, she's so cute, "My name is Heather O'Rourke, but you're a stranger and I can't talk to you."
Aww.
And, you know, eventually, I guess, like, he hung out.
That's like that TikTok I sent you last night.
Yes. You know, I don't want to admit that I love TikTok.
I love it so much.
It's all of the vet stuff is so
free. That
factually
is free
accurate
content. I mean,
it
amazing.
Is incredible. The only problem is, like, I look down, it's 9 o'clock. I look back, it's 3 a.m.
Yeah, it does get away from you.
So, Heather's mom did eventually come back, and this strange man introduced himself. It was fucking Steven Spielberg. Can you imagine the mom who's like, who's that fucking creep talking to my child?
Sorry.
And at the time, this girl, by the way, Heather was like 5 years old.
What?
At the time that this interaction. So first of all, how the fuck is she sitting by herself? Second of all, when you come out, are you like, who is this bro?
Who is this motherfucker?
The motherfucker was Steven Spielberg, so in this case it worked out.
I guess. He could still be creepy. We don't know.
I mean, probably. He's in Hollywood and he's
let's be honest.
a white man.
Yikes.
R.I.P.
R.I.P.
So, she did fail her first audition for Poltergeist. He presented her with a stuffed animal, and from what I gather, I think it was supposed to be scary.
I'm sorry, Steven Spielberg did Poltergeist?
Yeah.
Oh. Did you say that earlier?
No.
Okay.
But he did.
Okay.
And he saw her and he was like, that's my Carol Ann, and he just wanted to make it work. But she failed her first audition because she laughed at the stuffed animal, and he just thought she's too young at the time. She's 5 years old. She's not going to grasp it. She's a little kid. She's a baby.
Right.
You know, I want it to work out for whatever
Like,
reason.
how do child actors even exist?
You know, I think...
Do you just tell them for like a week beforehand, like, you're this other person now?
I think that children, you forget because you're an adult, but they have huge imaginations and they absorb everything.
I know, but to stay in character?
So I actually read something about her that she could memorize the entire script, everyone's lines, in like an hour. So she would just memorize them.
Why couldn't that be me?
You know who else was like that? Emma Watson in Harry Potter. If you actually watch the like special features on the first film, she memorized everyone's lines, and they had a really hard time filming her because she would mouth their lines while they were talking, and they couldn't get her to stop doing it, and it would ruin all these takes. So, but he just thought at the time, he's like, she's too young. It's just not going to happen. She can't grasp it. She's a baby.
Yeah.
But, you know, he just, there was something about her. He was like, you know what? I'm going to have her come back. I'm going to have her try a second audition and bring a scary book. This is where we get into child endangerment, but I'm just a layman. What do I know?
What? The 80s, you said?
Yeah. Yeah, I wasn't even born yet, so.
I didn't believe in child endangerment in the 80s.
Apparently not. So.
People free roamed back then.
It is crazy. Well, I
Even
guess.
I was pretty free range.
We're free range chickens.
I just kind of walked around the neighborhood and did shit.
Oh, I did too. I told you the story that I was almost abducted. I feel like that shit happened so much or was so close to happening, and people just, you know, now you have your cell phones and technology.
Oh, yeah, I never had a phone.
Yeah. Oh, no.
What would I have done? What
mom just
would
had to...
I have done? Died.
Yeah. She just had to wait for me to stroll home and be like, oh, you made it.
Geolocation tagging your phone.
No. It was a different time, and I guess stuff just... I think it's always been happening. Creeps have always been there.
I used to ride up to Harford Road and go into, like, the CVS on Harford Road.
So I was actually a really scared kid, and I don't know. I was really afraid to be away from my mom. I was very careful.
I did a lot, and I was never kidnapped, so that's pretty good.
I was a really good kid, and I was a really good teenager, and I would actually, if I was out with my friends at a party, I would call my mom and say, okay, I'm leaving, and I'm going to this place now.
Well, I just didn't party.
I didn't party, but I just went with, like, my friends. But I will say my mom had, like, a super good approach to parenting, because she would never freak out in the moment, because she wanted me to know, like, I'm your mom. There is nothing you can say or do that I'm not going to love you. So I remember the first time the only time I got really drunk and I came home, and she said, it's okay. Are you okay? Do you need a ride? And I said, no. And I walked home, and she said, okay. And she held my hair back while I threw up, and we watched movies, and I got in her bed. And the next day she was like, what are we going to do about this? But she didn't
I'm going to kill you.
Knee jerk. You know what I mean? So I do think that's important. I don't have kids.
True.
I don't know. But as a child...
Well, yeah, No, if you are an asshole and unrealistic about what your kids are going to do, then they're just going to be in way more of a dangerous situation if they feel like they can't reach out to you.
My niece the other
day...
day...
drunk, maybe, or...
I was like, this is a
shit.
Teaching moment. She's only 4, and... she said something about her older brother, and she was like, he tells lies all the time. And I looked her right in her little soul, and I said, I gotta tell you something. And she said, he tells lies to mommy because he doesn't want to get in trouble. And I said, because it's a sad, sick world. I'm gonna be honest. We talk about gross, terrible things on this podcast. It is a pervy, sick world. It's true. Don't you know those creeps, the first thing out of their mouth is always, don't tell your mom or you'll get in trouble or she won't love you anymore. Like, I know the weird shit that goes down. I watch Criminal Minds, and I looked her right in her little eyes,
saying that shit.
And I said, your mom loves you more than anything. And I don't care how scared you are. You always tell her the truth. She might get mad, and that's okay. And I said, if you feel like she'll get mad, just tell me. I won't get mad. Because that's what my sister-in-law always says. She's like, as long as they're telling someone and they're okay, that's all she cares about.
That's true.
That was a long sidebar because he's about to abuse the shit out of this kid at this audition. In my mind. So I gotta find my spot here. I'm really lost, guys.
It's fine.
Okay. As part of the audition, he had her scream over and over and over, and that's all she did until she broke down in tears because she couldn't do it anymore.
I would not want to be in the room that day.
I wouldn't want to be this child's parent.
I mean, apparently her parent or parents didn't care.
They were like, this little cash cow is going to produce.
This bitch is making us some money.
I don't know. It was just like, she's a kid. Maybe, for all I know, maybe she screamed over and over 3 times and then broke down. But
No. It was definitely traumatic.
The next day, though, he did tell her family, I don't know what it is about her, but she's got the job. And she basically became a star literally overnight. She became recognized anywhere in California, including her favorite theme park, Disneyland.
I've never been to Disneyland.
Me either, by the way. And my dad, who's dead, has passed now, he always wanted to take us. So in 20 years, when COVID's gone, we're going to go.
We have to get a flash pass, though, or I won't go.
That's fine. I know you're an expensive bitch.
I don't stand in those lines. That is just not. I don't go enough to justify standing in line.
You're not a line standing hoe?
If I'm gonna go to an amusement park once every 2 years, I'm spending the extra $60 on the flash pass.
To be fair, I mean, I've heard you can stand in those lines for like 2.5 hours, 3 hours,
plus hours.
Yeah.
Plus.
Like, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna stand in line and get on 4 rides.
No, I'm not doing that. It's just not happening.
You've made it clear that's not occurring.
I'm too old.
I'm gonna show up in there in a fucking, what are those things you can get at the grocery store?
That's a young people sport.
The mopeds with like the baskets for all my winnings. Okay. Sorry. Guys, I'm not focused today and I'm really sorry. In the years that followed, she became a household name in television, but her performance in the sequel to Poltergeist, which was Poltergeist 2: The Other Side, which came out in 1986, is what really cemented her place in Hollywood history. Like, that was it. She was good to go. She was going up. Just kidding, because it was super, super short-lived. In January 1987, she began to have flu-like symptoms, and her legs and feet were actually swelling.
Oh, I forgot this ends in death.
I know. And she's like, if you just read the little things about her, like, this little kid was like the most loving, sweetest, perfect little innocent flower.
No.
So she was taken to Kaiser Hospital, where she was told it was only the flu, as can sometimes happen in healthcare. Side note, I don't
insurance. It's just the flu.
I don't hate doctors. I think doctors and nurses. I think healthcare workers are killing themselves, and I think they want
no. It's
a better
the
life.
Insurance industry, which is a scam and
big
a scheme.
pharma.
It's a Ponzi scheme.
So,
but whatever.
Her symptoms didn't get better, and when they didn't get better, they diagnosed her with Crohn's disease, which is a chronic inflammation of the intestines. Which it tracked with her symptoms. It made sense to her mom at the time. She's being told this information. And I'm not even going to say, like, there is some negligence here. Doctors are human beings that are following science to make diagnosis. And
yes.
it is what it is.
Can't make mistakes.
But they diagnosed her with Crohn's disease. So I remember actually as a kid seeing her in the third Poltergeist. And she's very swollen. And I remember saying to my mom, like she looks really different. Is that the same girl?
Well, that's dark.
When you take steroids, it gives you something called moon face. So I have to take them for fertility. And it actually makes your face like just swell out and get really circular when you have to take it for a long time. So she was medicated throughout all of filming of Poltergeist 3, which did cause her to have the symptoms described. I presume it was steroids, but I don't know for sure. Her castmates recalled that she never complained during filming, and they didn't even know she was sick, I don't think. So after filming, everything was relatively fine. She was on her medicine. She took a road trip with her family. Everything was going great. But then sadly, on January 31st, 1988, I was born July 1988, by the way, which was Super Bowl Sunday. Heather was unable to keep anything down, and she was super, super sick to the point that she crawled in bed with her parents, just, like a little baby, 12 years old. She didn't feel good.
Oh my God, no.
The next morning, things took a turn for the worse. She wasn't able to swallow her breakfast. She was trying to eat, I think it was like Gatorade and toast. And she wasn't able to swallow it. And her mom, like at the same time, noticed that her fingers were blue and her hands were cold. So she called the paramedics, but before they could arrive, Heather actually fainted on the kitchen floor. Such an angel, because she came to, like, before they got there. She, I guess, woke up. And she was like, no, I'm really okay. Like, I don't want to miss school today. Like, this child loved to go to school.
I'm literally gonna cry.
I know.
That's horrible.
So she was taken by ambulance.
Oh my God, you could just die just like that and not even know it's coming?
So in the ambulance, she suffered cardiac arrest. When she got to the hospital, it wasn't clear, so I assume they resuscitated her because they then operated on her at the hospital for her actual affliction, which was congenital intestinal stenosis, or an intestinal blockage.
I'm upset.
So she had a blockage, like, in her intestines. She had a bowel obstruction. Or, I don't know if bowel's the right term, because I don't know if, like, your bowel is, like, the lower part of your intestines, but she had a blockage, and the blockage was causing her symptoms. And then, I don't know much about it from, like, a human perspective, but I've seen it a lot at the vet with dogs. They eat something their body can't pass, and for a long time, they can actually seem okay as it tries to pass and kind of works its way through. And then you can see symptoms get more severe when it gets, like, balled up and backed up, and it pressurizes. It can't get through anymore, and it's stuck. You can see vomiting, diarrhea, things like that. And then a lot of times what we see is owners don't know. It'll perforate the bowel, and they'll become septic and die that way. So she died on the operating table, which the only thing that gives me any peace whatsoever is that she was sedated. You're not operating on somebody not sedated. So she was sedated, died in her sleep. She died on the table at 2:43 p.m. at 12 years old. And she's actually buried in the same cemetery as Dominique Dune. She was reported as never refusing an autograph for any fan. And her last words were, "I love you," to her mom. I know. I was writing this and I was like, oh, she loves her mom. It was really hard.
That's so sad.
It really is sad.
That's really upsetting.
So the last death of a cast member from the Poltergeist, which is actually the most recent, is the death of Lou Perryman, who played construction worker Pugsley. Though Perryman never became a household name, he still proved to be a substantial and delightful asset to the handful of movies he appeared in throughout the years. He first became involved in the film business back in 1961 while on leave from the U.S. Army. And he had a long and, while not prominent, super successful career in film, including his role in Poltergeist. And I want to say he was in, like, the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, like the original sequel. I looked up pictures of him, and I'm pretty sure he played a sheriff in that. He looked super familiar. So he was actually murdered in his home in Austin, Texas on April 1st, 2009, at the hands of 26-year-old Seth Christopher Tatum. Tatum was just released from prison for aggravated robbery.
Third cousin of Channing Tatum.
I wish. I don't want to get all, like, on my political soapbox about prison reform, but I just don't know how you expect people to be successful when you're like, okay, you haven't known the outside world, you've been imprisoned, here, go figure it out. I think people think that prison reform means you're this horrible person and we want to give you a bunch of free shit in a mansion, and that's what we mean by reform.
That is absolutely not what prison reform means.
But I think
prison reform means reforming the way that our prisons run so that you actually create successful members of society, people who want to contribute to society, if they are going to be released. If their crime was extremely heinous and they shouldn't be released, then...
But that's a problem for, like, the parole board.
That's
fine.
But
for me, I feel like people get so wrapped up that I think a lot of times our issues are just blind ignorance. Like, you just don't know. I've experienced it myself with certain issues, and I just don't know about it. So I get all in a tizzy, and then somebody's like, let me educate you on X, Y, or Z. But basically, this guy left prison, had gone into prison with mental instability, with mental health issues, and was just kind of released. And, you know, there is no follow-up. It's like, you made it out.
Especially
you know?
Not for mental health issues. Mental health in America is so fucked. Our whole healthcare system is fucked. And anyone who doesn't live in America will tell you that it's fucked.
I also think it's worse because he's a man. I do think in one area that men are disadvantaged is I think that because there's still such like a high complex of, well, you're a man, you need to push aside your feelings. I feel like mental health in men is even worse.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's like,
statistically.
Yeah. That's why I love Grey's Anatomy and what they're doing with the DeLuca character, because he's in the middle of like an actual mental breakdown where he needs legitimate help. And it's just... You never see that. You never see that in film and television where a man is going through it and needs legitimate help. Anyway, all that to say, there's no excuse for murdering someone before you come for me. What I'm saying is that he was released from prison. He did some bad things. And then without any guidance, he went off of his medications and started self-medicating with alcohol.
Alcohol, legal. Marijuana, illegal. What the fuck is that?
Right? Meanwhile, if he just had some weed, like his anxiety would be reduced. Like he wouldn't be stressed out.
Yeah, I'm telling you, weed solves everything. Every issue you've ever had, probably.
Well, he later confessed that he did kill Perryman with an axe by striking him multiple times in the head. In court, Tatum testified that he came across Perryman by chance after he had attacked his mother's ex-boyfriend with garden shears that morning. He did confess to killing Perryman for his car. Again, he's in a mental downward spiral. And very sadly, Tatum's mother reported that just prior to the attack, on March 31st, 2009, so literally the night before, he asked his mom to take him to Seton Shoal Creek Hospital, but they couldn't afford it, so she didn't take him. So not only was he self-medicating, but he actually asked for help, and, you know, it just couldn't happen.
This is America.
And
literally, the fact that people just die in this country because they cannot afford the inevitable ungodly bill from having an emergency visit anywhere.
Just like even seeking, you know, I've
if you don't
been
have
to therapy a
it's
lot.
$10,000 right in an ambulance to the hospital.
So
they will charge you for that. They send it to your home.
Oh, yes.
And then they send
and then you die and then they send it to your family.
Correct.
So I've been in therapy forever because just I know that shit's important. And with my old insurance, which I do have, I pay a lot for insurance because of my fertility stuff. So, you know, thankfully I live in a situation that I can afford to do that. And I work towards that. I kind of knew that was something I needed. And sometimes it is at the sacrifice of other things. But anyway, all that to say, my therapy used to be covered. I'd pay like $20 a session. Well, when I had my like second miscarriage and I was going like in the heat of fertility, I had like a really bad, like I was just not coping well and I needed therapy. Like I needed it. And so we went to therapy and the insurance didn't cover it anymore. And it was $200 every time I went.
Yeah.
So what happened? I had to not pay some bills.
Of all, no.
And then I had to like say, okay, if I'm going to go do this, I can't pay this. I can't do this. And so I was only able to go to a couple sessions and I got very lucky that that was enough to get me through like what I was struggling with at the time. But whatever. It just basically my whole takeaway is just while all these deaths are super tragic, obviously it's less of a curse and more of a failure of the human system.
That's
You know,
the terrifying thing.
and while America has a lot to learn and a lot to do, it's really worldwide. I'm disappointed in humanity right now anyway, so I'm already like, bleh.
I mean, humanity has
But
always been a disgrace, but America,
they do some dumb things, but I try to remind myself.
Canada, if you break your leg, you can go into the hospital and they fix it for you, and then you walk out. And then you go home.
I know. Here's the thing.
And people are always like, oh, you have to wait. I'm like, when is the last time you called your dentist and they said, oh yeah, you can come in tomorrow? No, they say, fuck you. The next appointment is 6 months from now. Oh. You're lucky if we'll fit you in.
It's true.
That's how America works, and you pay an ass load for it.
But here's the thing. We're a young country. People are getting woke. They're coming for the bullshit. And I don't want to be sad all the time, so I'm just choosing to believe we're going to get there.
Pharmaceutical industry is out of control.
Look, Grey's Anatomy is doing a good job attacking Big Pharma. They ain't letting that shit slide.
They can charge out the ass in America for anything they want.
Yeah, it's crazy. I have many examples. I could probably do a whole episode on Big Pharma, honestly, but
it enrages me.
If it's so many things. If Dominique had a safe way to escape her domestic abuse, she'd still be alive. Mm-hmm. If somebody on that movie set had said, hey, why the fuck is it acceptable that you're beaten to a pulp to the point I don't even need to touch you with makeup?
Who did this to you?
Yeah. And then we've already discovered the healthcare and prison reform. Just a lot of things I think could be avoided with take all that out of it with some basic compassion.
Oh, absolutely.
Some basic human decency. And like I said, do I think these doctors deliberately diagnosed this child with the wrong thing? No. But there's like a strain on doctors. They're working ridiculous shifts with half a minute of sleep a month.
Completely unfair.
I don't
even know why that's the norm, because to be fair with you, I'd rather have a doctor who got 8 hours of sleep last night.
Yes!
I don't want someone who's running on 2 hours and a venti latte.
Yes.
That's not who I want cutting into my heart.
No. It's just a weird all around. I feel like the curse.
Want someone well rested.
Yes, bitch, take a nap.
Send them
Come
home.
back.
Send them home.
Call in the backup.
I'll wait.
Look, I believe in things like curses and creepy things, whatever. In this case, I think there's very clear. It's like ghost hunters when they go into a house and they're like, "Is there a ghost or is your faucet making sounds?" Like. Sadly, I think this is some faucet sounds occurring. Mm-hmm. That being said,
it is unfortunate luck.
It is very unfortunate to have two people so closely related, both murdered, too. Like, that's weird to me.
That's weird. For one movie set?
Yes. Now, the next movie, though, I do think this shit was cursed. But this could also be because I grew up, hard Baptist, and I'm like, Jesus is coming for me. So... okay, so I do want to breeze through one other movie just because to give some context, because I do think this movie has more of okay, maybe they were cursed, which you also haven't seen. It's The Passion of the Christ, 2004, which depicts the final 12 hours in the life of Jesus of Nazareth on the day of his crucifixion in Jerusalem. Fun fact, by the way, it's the highest grossing foreign language film or subtitled film in the U.S. box office history. Wow. And it is also the highest grossing religious film in the worldwide box office of all time.
Wow.
Which I thought was interesting.
That is fascinating.
I
get it.
All right, let me blow through these because I've been running my jaws for a minute. So some of the most notable issues included when lead actor Jim Caviezel suffered a shoulder separation when the 150-pound cross drops on his shoulder. Mm-mm. The scene is still in the movie. Jim was also...
Keep it. It looks good.
Because it looks real. A lot of his injuries are still in the movie. Which, if you've seen it, you'd believe that shit. That movie makes me want to hurl. It is so sickening. But yet, it's actually on the list of 1,001 movies you have to see before you die. Wow. Maybe I'll do it. So he was struck by lightning. Jim Caviezel was struck by lightning when he was delivering a sermon on the Mount, and again when he was being crucified. One of the strikes actually caused his hair to catch on fire, yet he was otherwise unharmed. The scenes of him hanging on the cross were filmed in the dead of winter, causing him to suffer hypothermia and pneumonia as temperatures were as low as 25 degrees Fahrenheit.
Why didn't they just film in the summer?
Listen, that's not how they roll. You're going to suffer for your craft. And lastly,
that's disrespectful.
And honestly, the least of his fucking problems, the makeup messed with his depth perception and caused migraines because he had like makeup to make him look really injured.
Oh my god.
In one scene in the movie, while he's hanging on the cross, he can be seen to have a blue coloration to his skin. It is not a special effect, but due to asphyxiation, which is believed to be the typical cause of death for crucified victims. Prolonged suspension by the arms in this position may cause severe extension of the chest muscles and lungs, which makes breathing very difficult and causes slow suffocation. Victims would usually survive as long as they were able to pull themselves up by the arms to take a breath. So you would essentially have to pull yourself up to take the breath and then let yourself go. But the exhaustion inevitably ensued. A footrest, which is also depicted in the movie, was sometimes placed to relieve the arms, but ironically, it also served to prolong the agony because you're going to be up there till you die. Like, that's how you're dying.
I am so glad I was not born.
Which this is a historical way to die. Like, whether or not you believe in Jesus, you could just take that out. The only difference is that in Jesus's crucifixion, he was physically nailed and everyone else was tied to the cross. You'd still suffer the same way. His was just more for, like, I guess, extra pain. Most scholars agree that crucified people probably died from a combination of suffocation, heart failure, exposure, dehydration, lung embolism, or sepsis from infected wounds endured from the nails or the flogging that preceded it. So I guess, like, everyone got whipped on the way, not just Jesus.
Well, that's fun. Just spice it up a little.
I think I liked it as a movie because obviously I do believe in God and that's my personal thing over here, but it is a historical type of death, so I still found it interesting just to see how that went down. Yeah. Because you hear so many crazy things, but your brain doesn't compute what that looks like. So for me, this movie, I was like, fuck, like...
They clearly did
We're bitching about fucking lethal injection.
Ooh.
So.
Yeah. That would be the kind way to go. Lethal injection? That is the kindest way to go.
They should make them watch this movie and be like, you're welcome. You're welcome.
I mean, all you gotta do is be in Texas to be like, please no.
Texas, she's a lone state. She's not a lone star. She's a lone state.
I just can confirm they still electrocute people. And sometimes it takes like 6 tries.
Oh God, just don't get yourself in that position if you can help it. In addition, assistant director Jan Michelini was also struck by lightning while filming in Italy only 5 minutes after Jim had been hit. And then he also had been hit earlier in the production while holding an umbrella, causing burns to his fingertips.
That's unreal.
Yes. And I actually remember this because I remember, like, because, you know, there are people in my life that are extreme religious in a different ethos than I live in. So I remember when this happened, they were like, Jesus is coming. Like, this is it. But not only was the film allegedly cursed for the cast and crew, but fans as well.
Oh, hell no.
On the first day of general release, which was Ash Wednesday, Peggy Scott, a 56-year-old advertising sales manager from Wichita, Kansas, collapsed of apparent heart failure while watching the crucifixion scene and then later died at the hospital.
Whoa.
All in all, the experiences on the set were horrific. And they were so horrific that many of the cast and crew converted to Catholicism after completion of the film because they were like, we angered the Almighty.
We have to repent for our sins.
Among those who converted were Luca Leonello. He was a self-proclaimed angry atheist who played Judas Iscariot, and a Muslim actor who played one of the torturing guards. So that's pretty much it. I just wanted to get that one out there because to me, that one reads more of like an actual curse.
He literally got, what was it?
Like,
struck by lightning?
Yeah, struck by lightning, electrocuted, and there was like actually...
That's a lot.
I had written something and it straight up I don't know if I said it and just literally it left my mind, but oh, I think I did. That Jim Caviezel was actually hit with the whips a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
I did say it.
Mm-hmm.
And it left like a huge scar on his back. But another kind of, I guess, curse that ties into it is after Mel Gibson offered Jim Caviezel the role, he immediately was like, you should back out, because he was like, this is a statement and you might kind of do yourself in Hollywood, like this isn't. And Jim Caviezel did say, he said that while he doesn't regret doing the movie because it sounds like a fucking experience, he did say that he's had trouble ever since being cast in Hollywood, whether that's to typecasting or whatever. The movie was controversial. Like, people that believed in God were mad because they were like, we don't want you to depict him this way. People that didn't believe were like, who cares? Like, it just caused a little bit of a... And then fucking Mel Gibson directed it, and it's like, excuse me, sir, how do you think you get to tell the story of anything related to Jesus after the way you've been acting a fool? But he went in strong. And I will tell you, from a movie person, I do think you have to see that shit to fucking believe it.
Yeah.
But you should definitely watch it during the day, and you should not be eating, if anyone is interested.
I don't know if anyone's interested.
But you see what I mean? That one's definitely more of like curse typical. Like, that was like Mother Nature just like beating you down a couple times. Like, it's not like you were murdered because a person was a monster.
Yeah.
I am sorry that was longer than I anticipated. I only had 4 pages of notes. How am I like this? Why?
You managed to pull it off.
Well, you can cut out some of my heavy breathing and ranting.
We'll see. It adds
to
the character building.
They should know what kind of shitbags we are.
Yes.
Do you have any thoughts on what you're going to do next, or are you still thinking?
Yes.
But you're not going to tell me?
Aliens.
Is it time?
Yes.
Okay, guys. I believe so hard in aliens, and I am so excited because there's so little that I know.
Yeah. Gotta talk about Bob Lazar.
Okay, I'm really excited for that one. I feel like that one could end up as 2 parts. Easy.
It's true.
Easy
Well, I'm
peasy.
gonna focus on like Area 51 and the history behind it,
That's exciting.
as opposed to just all aliens in general.
I think maybe the next thing I do, I'm going to try to do like more, like more background based. Right now I'm all story. I'm coming in hot.
Well, it depends on the topic.
Yeah. Maybe this time I won't wait until the day we're filming it to have it ready.
It's fine.
Thank you for loving me through it.
It's fine.
Okay.
Everything's fine.
It's been real.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.